Hi guys, Anushka here. Um, I've been really moved by a few things that I have been thinking about and that I've been listening to make this video. Excuse me if it's a bit of a mess in the background. I was doing a jewelry fair the other week and I still haven't cleared up properly, but so this video is basically about the fact that the relationship that we have with ourselves will determine, for the most part, the life that we experience. And I've been reflecting on this and I've been thinking about this, and it's really hit me today. You know, it's something that I knew, something that I was very aware of, but sometimes a realization just gets to you and takes hold and really sinks deep. And I think it's so important that, you know, I just felt like I wanted to share this. So, what do I mean by this? Well, we grow up in all kinds of environments and all kinds of families and family structures, and unfortunately more and more the toxic kind of family it's become more pervasive. Or maybe it was always that way. Maybe we haven't understood properly how to raise children, how to be functional families that are emotionally tuned in, as well as mentally, and as well as providing, you know, the adequate physical means. Perhaps we've always been dysfunctional, and now, only now as a human race, we're evolving and learning about the importance of emotional relating and emotional health. Maybe that's the case. But for those of us who have been raised in family situations where there was neglect or abuse or projection, or where you were treated as if you were an extension of your parents and you weren't allowed to grow up as an individual, you weren't allowed to individuate and be seen as a person in your own right, this will affect your relationship with yourself. Because we look to our parents to mirror back to us who we are. And so, you know, from my own personal experience, I mean, there was so much that was mirrored back to me that wasn't true of who I was, which I ended up carrying with me. And you kind of learn who you are through the parenting experience, through the childhood experience. Sorry, I'm speaking very slowly because I've just come out of a bit of an emotional moment. But you learn who you are as a child through your parents, through their adoration or lack of adoration, or connection or lack of connection with you, or abuse or lack of abuse, you know, with you. Whatever it is, you learn who you are and you internalize it. And then that becomes your relationship with yourself, whether you know it or not. And the reason I say that the relationship that we have with ourselves will determine, for the most part, the experience we have in life is because if we grow up with very critical parents, let's say, if we grow up with parents who are who don't allow us to speak our own truth, who don't allow us to show our emotions unless they're happy and good emotions, you know, who fault find with us and are constantly picking away at us and eroding our self-esteem, we eventually internalize that and it becomes our inner voice, it becomes an inner critic. And we start, regardless of when we leave, you know, when you leave home, or even if your parents pass away, if this is something that goes unhealed in you, you still carry it with you. It's there because it was formed as a part of your identity as a kid. Because we trust our parents as children to show us who we are. You know, we look at them, we're like, well, you've been here longer than me, and you're all-knowing, you're omnipotent, you are the holy mother and father, you are the be-all and end-all. You must know who I am, and I love you, and therefore everything you say is truth and fact. So when they pick at you or erode you or abuse you, you take that on. internally. And no matter what happens, whether they pass away or you leave home, if those voices, those hurts, those things they projected onto you don't get healed, you internalize them and it becomes a part of your ego, of your psyche. And so going back to the example of a parent that's really critical, so then you start to become somebody who's highly critical of yourself, a perfectionist, highly judgmental of yourself, you know, and I mean, I had this, and no way, I actually think this is something that I've, for the most part, there's a bit left, but for the most part I've put this to bed. I'm working on other things now, but I used to be so highly critical of myself. I would be in social situations and I would say something, and immediately afterwards I'd think, why the hell did you say that? You sounded so stupid. Why would you say that? I mean, that was so, and I would spend the next 10 minutes completely disassociated from whatever conversation was going on, criticizing and judging myself of what I'd said and how stupid it sounded and how stupid I was. So basically playing the role of my parent. I didn't need them, you know, I didn't need them there to say those things because I was doing it automatically. So the relationship that our parents have with us as children often ends up becoming the relationship we have with ourselves. If our parents are healthy and balanced and recognize our need to be an individual and love us not for what we can do, not for what we can achieve, not for how we make them look, not for how we make them feel, but love us just because we are, then we grow up with a healthy sense of self. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't get this. I mean, I know a few people who've had parents like this, and my God, they are bloody lucky. And I won't lie, I envy them a little bit. But I was given this path for a reason, you know? So, going back to it. So then that becomes your relationship with yourself. So like, going back to the example, so that highly critical parent ends up becoming you. You end up becoming the highly critical overseer of yourself. And what happens then is that there is a filter put on between you and the outer world. Because if you're always criticizing yourself, if you're saying you're not good enough, you can never measure up, that wasn't good enough, my God, you're stupid, you're a fool. That is then something you will automatically apply to the world and other people by proxy. Because let's face it, your opinion and your view is the most important view. And I don't care what anyone says, your opinion and your thoughts and your feelings of yourself are the most important. And how do you know that? You know that because the only eyes you can look out of are yours. The only feelings you can feel are yours. The only life you can live is yours. Therefore, your opinion, your feelings, your thoughts about yourself are the most important. And if they have a program running of negativity, or that's too general, of self-criticism, of self-loathing, of shame, of whatever it might be, then that will apply to all of your life. It will be the filter through which you see life because you are looking from your perspective with this filter of self-criticism. So let's say here I am and I've got this pure view of the world, right? Totally open being, balanced, happy, healthy. Something happens to me in my childhood, judgm, you know, criticism from my parents all the time. Judgm, this filter comes down. Because I see myself as imperfect. Now I see myself as never being able to be good enough, never being able to do good enough, always being, you know, an embarrassment to myself. So, judgm, this filter is down. So if I see myself that way, I can only relate to others the way that I relate to myself. And that is the truth. We can only ever meet people on the same level as they have met themselves and as we have met ourselves. So if I am consumed by self-loathing or self-criticism, as a result, I'm going to automatically assume, without even thinking about it consciously, that that's what everyone else in the world does. That the world judges me because I judge myself. And hang on a minute, if me, essentially the most important person in my life. Not even essentially, I am. So are you. You are the most important person in your life because you're living your life. So if me, the most important person in my life, judges myself so harshly and criticizes myself and puts myself down, then everyone else has got to meet that standard. You cannot hold that view. You cannot be that way to yourself without assuming everyone else will be too. It's an automatic response. And so then in turn, we end up experiencing things in life and having relationships in which we perpetuate that very thing we feel about ourselves. And sometimes it can be completely, seemingly irrational to the other person. And this is the difference. You can have somebody who isn't self-critical and who feels quite good about themselves, and somebody who is really self-critical and doesn't feel good about themselves. One person could say the same thing to both of them. So they could say, what could they say? They could say something like, oh, you look really nice in pink. I've never seen you in that colour before. You know, are you trying something new? Like, you never dress like that, okay? And person A with a healthy self-esteem could be like, just receive it for what it is and go, yeah, I just felt like, making a change and whatever, and, just felt like, expressing more of my feminine side. And person B, who's highly critical of themselves, highly judgmental of themselves, and doesn't feel good about themselves, would go, well, what are you trying to say? You saying this doesn't suit me? Should I not experiment? Obviously I look stupid in this. What do you mean, am I trying something new? What do you mean? Why have you pointed that out? Obviously I look stupid, I should, and then they start thinking I should never, wait, do you see what I mean? Like, so it's about the filters through which we see life. And it's so hard to get a realistic gauge of life when you have so many negative and self-defeating, self-abusive patterns of thoughts going on. And I mean, I've experienced this myself. My gosh, I went in my, I would say up until about 26, I was so self-critical, painfully so. And I would do that thing that I talked about in conversations, where I would analyse everything I just said and think how stupid I sounded. But it started to ease as I started to heal and work with my emotions. But I've also, this is a weird thing, going through this process, I've been around people and had conversations with people, some close to me, some not, in which I've said things that were completely innocent, and suddenly you hear this person go off on a, what do you mean by that? Oh, well, that's obviously I can't do anything right. And you go, whoa, but, huh? Hang on a minute, I just said I don't want to go eat there. And this literally happened. I said to somebody once, I was like, no, I don't want to go eat there because I can't remember what it was. It was something like, I don't want to go eat there because that's where we always go. It's like, whatever. And suddenly it turned into, oh my god, well, obviously what I do isn't good enough, and blah, 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 blah. And they went off on this tangent. I said, whoa, stop a second. What are you talking about? And then they said, oh, well, I thought you meant you didn't want to go to that place because, and I said, no, you're talking about a completely different place of, I know I'm getting confusing. You're talking about a completely different place to the one I'm talking about. And they were like, oh. And I was like, yeah. And this is the thing, when you're dealing with somebody who's seeing the world through, I'm always being criticized, I'm always being attacked, I'm never good enough, it's very hard to win. Because you cannot argue with their filter, you cannot argue with their relationship with themselves. Somebody who doesn't think they're good enough, who is highly self-critical, who is self-effacing, who has all those things going on, will a lot of the time take what you say, no matter how innocent, no matter how non-personal, and make it into something personal, a personal attack on them. Why is that? It's because their relationship with themselves is so shit, so crap, that they assume everyone else has the same relationship with them too. It's like, hang on a minute, I talk to myself like shit, I think I'm a piece of shit, so you must do too. So that comment you just made, even though it sounds like it's completely unrelated, it must be related to me in some sort of crap way. I got into a car with somebody once and I said, bloody hell, it really smells of cigarettes in here. I learned months later they took that as a personal insult. And they said that really wound me up. That made me really angry and I felt like you were attacking me. It wasn't an attack. It was literally, it really smells of cigarettes in here. You know, now I'm a smoker, you know, and so I was just pointing out because I'm like, for me to smell that must really smell. But it was nothing personal, but that's what will happen. So our relationship with ourselves, it determines how we experience the world. It determines how we view the world. And we can take something that's completely innocent as an attack, because we're always attacking ourselves, we assume everyone else must be. We can take something that's completely innocent as a criticism, because we're always criticizing ourselves, we assume everyone else must be. We can take something else, something someone does as shaming us, because we're always shaming ourselves, we assume they must be too. We project so much of this, we filter. And unfortunately with that filter, we leave out all the good stuff. We block ourselves off from all the good stuff. The sad part about this is we do this to ourselves. We hurt ourselves more than anyone could hurt us. And the reason I got emotional about it was because I was thinking about it and I realised how about 2 years ago I started to feel really bad about myself. And I spiraled, and then I got myself in a situation which, quite frankly, has been my ultimate growth. It's also been extremely painful. But tracing it back, and not saying that person did that to me, but actually realizing, hang on a minute, long before they came along, I was saying all this stuff to myself. I was saying I wasn't good enough. I was saying I wasn't lovable. I was saying I wasn't worthy. I was saying that I was less than. But I was just doing it in such an automatic, autopilot way that I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was rejecting really healthy love because I don't feel good enough. Thereby compounding it, sending myself yet another message that you're not good enough. And I was doing this for a while, and then someone came into my life that really highlighted, you obviously do not feel worthy, because if you had, you would never have let me into your life. And suddenly it all became clear. And at first what we do is we blame. We say, it's that person's fault. You demean me. You don't make me feel good enough. You don't see me. You don't hear me. You don't treat me like a human being. At first it starts there. Yes, obviously they have their shortcomings. But the truth of the matter is, it nearly always starts with us. Our relationship with ourselves dictates who we allow into our lives, what we allow into our lives, and how we view things. And if we feel shit about ourselves, quite often we'll let in people who will compound that and show us just how shit we feel about ourselves. They will magnify it to the point where we either have to just sink into despair, or we go, hang on a minute, this is not the truth of me. But they magnify it to us for us to heal and finally deal with. Because the fact of the matter is, we were doing it long before they came around. We were feeling crap about ourselves long before they magnified it and made it 10 times apparently worse. And so I just wanted to kind of reiterate that and just talk about that today, because it's quite, for me anyway personally, it's quite healing. You know, I'm always learning on this journey, but it's quite healing and sad, but yet empowering at the same time to go, wow, I was abusing myself long before they did. All they did was add to it, you know? And quite often this is what toxic relationships are about. And so it really is about our relationship with ourselves. We can only let in what we allow in. And when we allow, how we allow people to treat us is an indication of how we treat ourselves internally. So, you know, that's really what I wanted to say on the matter. I hope that that makes sense. But anyway, thank you for listening, and yeah, I will be back with more. I feel like I'm getting real deep healing at the moment, and it's making me go quite silent and just, yeah, really taking it in. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I will be back with more. Take care, guys. Bye bye.